Hello bachcho, let's read the question. So the question says, read the passage given below. The Battle of Chancellorsville, one of the most famous battles of the Civil War, took place in Virginia in the spring of 1863. For months, two armies have been stacked on the opposite banks of a narrow river. The Confederate troops were led by perhaps the most revered military tactician in American history, General Robert E. Lee. The Union soldiers were led by Fighting Joe Hooker. In appearance, personality, and lifestyle, these men were nearly perfect opposites. Lee, an older man, in poor health with a grey beard, had a somber, measured demeanor. Hooker was a blond, strapping young man whose vanity over his appearance was but one aspect of his egotism. Whereas Lee was devout and principled, Hooker was known for his rollicking enjoyment. Despite the fact that the Confederacy had won the last four major battles and the Union soldiers were famished, exhausting, and demoralized, Hooker proclaimed, "My plans are perfect, and when I start to carry them out, may God have mercy on Bobby Lee, I shall have none." Why, aside from propensity for narcissism, was Hooker so confident? Hooker had used spies, analysts, and even hot air balloons to compile a vast amount of intelligence about Lee's army. He had discerned, for example, that Lee had only 61,000 men to Hooker's own 134,000. Both by a superior number, Hooker covertly moved 70,000 of his men 15 miles up and across the river, and then ordered them to sneak back down to the position themselves behind Lee's army. In effect, Hooker had cut off the Confederate soldiers in front and behind. They were trapped. Satisfied with this advantage, Hooker became convinced that Lee had only option was to retreat Richmond, thus assuring a Union victory. Yet Lee, despite his disadvantages of both number and position, did not retreat. Instead, he moved his troops into position to attack. Union soldiers who tried to warn Hooker that Lee was on the offensive were dismissed as cowards. Having become convinced that Lee had no choice but to retreat, Hooker began to ignore reality. When Lee's army attacked the Union soldiers at 5 p.m., they were eating supper, completely unprepared for battle. They abandoned their rifles and fled as Lee troops came shrieking out of the brush, beards strung. Against all odds, Lee won the Battle of Chancellorsville and Hooker forces withdrew in defeat. Now, this is a graph of the casualties at the battle. Now, on the basis of your understanding of the passage, answer the following question. How many men did Hooker position behind Lee's army? तो बच्चों देखिए, अगर हम पैराग्राफ 4 को अच्छे से पढ़ें यहाँ से कि he had discerned, for example, that Lee had only 61,000 men to Hooker's own 134,000. उससे पहले हम पैसेज को समझेंगे कि ये पैसेज है बच्चों बैटल ऑफ चांसेलर्सविल के बारे में, जो एक बहुत फेमस बैटल है ऑफ द सिविल वॉर व्हिच हैपेंड इन वर्जीनिया इन द स्प्रिंग ऑफ 1863. ठीक है बच्चों, तो यहाँ पे दो ट्रूप्स हैं, एक कॉन्फेडरेट ट्रूप्स है जो लीड कर रहे हैं जनरल रॉबर्ट ई ली, और एक यूनियन सोल्जर्स का ट्रूप है जो लीड कर रहे हैं फाइटिंग जो हुकर. अब ये दोनों पर्सनालिटीज बहुत डिफरेंट हैं एक दूसरे से, लाइफस्टाइल में, अपीयरेंस में, और इनकी पर्सनालिटीज भी बहुत डिफरेंट है. अब जो हुकर है, ही इज एन ओवर कॉन्फिडेंट फेलो, ठीक है, बहुत ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस में जीते हैं, और ली उतना ही प्रिंसिपल्ड है. तो इसमें ये बताया गया है कि अगेंस्ट ऑल दी ऑड्स जाके ली कैसे अपनी ये डिफीट देते हैं हुकर को विद हिज लेस मैन, भले पोजीशन में हो या फिर नंबर्स में हो. सो इट इज ऑल एक्सप्लेन्ड. अब क्वेश्चन पे आते हैं. हाउ मेनी मैन डिड हुकर पोजीशन बिहाइंड लीज आर्मी? सो ही हैड डिसर्न, फॉर एग्जांपल, दैट ली हैड ओनली 61,000 men. Hooker's own 134,000. Buoyed by superior numbers, Hooker currently moves 70,000 men of his men 15 miles up and across the river and ordered them to sneak back down to position themselves behind Lee's army. ये यहाँ से हम पता करेंगे, and it is clearly evident कि उसने ये लिखा है कि option B 70,000 men उसने ऐसे किए. So the correct option is option number B 70,000. I hope you understood it well. Best of luck.